Hello teachers and students, and welcome to the first annual America Works conference. I'm Savannah Layfield and I'm the president of the America Works Foundation, and today we will be discussing the existence of the gender wage gap and these four different women's experiences in their professions and their personal life with this wage gap. First, we'll talk to Sarah Gilson, the youngest woman CEO of a Fortune 500 company. Then we'll talk to Amanda Rodriguez, a behavioral neuroscientist at the Mayo Clinic. Then we'll talk to Alex Diaz, who is a history teacher at Westlake High School. And then finally, we will talk to Jacqueline Solis, and she is the wife of a plant manager, homemaker, and mother of four. So I would like to remind panelists to be polite and to wait your turn. Each panelist will be asked 2 questions, and they will have 90 seconds to answer each question. After we've completed the panel, there will be a 5-minute Q&A session, and we shall begin. So let's start with Sarah. Sarah, how have your professional and personal experiences shaped your view of the gender wage gap?
Hi, my name is Sarah Gilson, and like our moderator has said, I am the youngest woman CEO of a Fortune 500 company. On my climb to the top of the business world, I have encountered a lot of difficulties, both in my personal and professional life, being a woman in the business field. Therefore, I do not agree with the wage gap. I think it is unfair and unreasonable. Here are a couple facts for you. According to a Business Insider article from March 2015, there are only 9 job fields in America in which women earn more than men. Out of these 9, a majority of them are low-wage paid jobs, such as special education leaders and cleaners of vehicle and equipment. Now, a Fortune article from April 2015 backs this information up, stating that women out-earn men in low-wage work. Going back to that Business Insider article, we see that they also provide the 9 most extreme job fields in which men earn more than women. 6 out of those 9 have to deal with the business fields. They deal with the finance area and other business jobs. Now, what does that mean for a woman in the business field? It means that I've had to work twice as hard to get paid the same amount of money. I'm getting paid $63,000 per year, opposed to the men across from me getting paid $100,000 a year. To me, that's unreasonable, unfair, and I've had to deal with that as I've climbed to the top of my business field. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Amanda, I have the same question for you. How have your professional and personal experiences shaped your view of the gender wage gap?
My name is Amanda Rodriguez, and I hold the position that the gender wage gap is a choice and not discrimination for 2 reasons. The first reason being that women in STEM actually earn closer to the amount that men make, and also because women choose less riskier jobs than men do. So on to my first point. According to MIT Women in STEM Clickbacks, women actually earn 92 cents to the men's dollar. Now, that isn't fair exactly. It's not, exactly the same amount, but it's close. And the reason why there's differences is because you can't compare like apples to oranges, because these women and men are doing different jobs. They may have different assignments, they may have different hours, they have different work experience and degrees, and that's why there's this difference in the wage gap. And another example being that my older brother is an electrical engineer in his company, and he works a job from 4 p.m. to 2 a.m., so he works the night shift. And it just so happens that all the men are in the night shift and all the women are during the 9 to 5 shift, and so the men are earning more money than the women because they're working at night. No one typically wants to work at night. And so because of these reasons, that's why I believe that the gender wage gap is a choice.
Thank you, Amanda. Alex, how have your professional and personal experiences shaped your view of the wage gap?
My name is Alex Diaz, and I am a high school history teacher at Westlake High. I got a bachelor's degree in both teaching and in history, and I have my teaching license. I feel like these are the general requirements for anyone to be a teacher, and that it's unfair that men who go through the same amount of training and teaching make a higher wage doing the same job that I do. So that's why I feel like it's discrimination for men to make more than women, simply because they are men. I don't feel like any man who works where I work does any more or any less than I do, or does a better discrimination, and that's why I'm against the wage gap.
Thank you, Alex. And finally, Kathleen, how have your personal and professional experiences shaped your view of the gender wage gap?
I'm Jacqueline, and I'm a homemaker and mother of 4. So as a mother, I know how much time it takes to take care of your children and your household. So for that reason, I think that the gender pay gap does make sense because women do invest a lot more time in their household. According to Modern Parenthood, women spend an average of 35 hours a week on housework and childcare, which is a lot more than men do, and they're also more willing to take on lower-paying jobs with flexible schedules so they can spend more time with their children, unlike men who choose higher-paying jobs that require more time to be spent at work. And for that reason, I think that the gender pay gap does make sense.
Okay, thank you. Now we'll start the second part of our panel discussion. So we'll start back with Sarah. Sarah, according to Forbes, women make 79 cents on every dollar that a man makes. Do you believe that this difference in wages is reasonable?
I do not believe that the difference in pay is reasonable at all. Me being a woman in the business field, I can put in just as much hours as my male counterparts, and I still don't get paid as much. I do the same amount of work, I put in just as much effort, and it doesn't result in the same way. I feel as if women are making that choice to enter the job field, women are going to college, women are trying to do well, they should be rewarded just as much as men are being rewarded. According to a American Association of University Women article, the gender pay gap is actually greater for women of color. This shows that the gender pay gap is actually just discrimination against women, and it's actually worse for women of color. Women should be paid just the same amount as men. I feel as if women putting in the same amount of work, it should result in the same amount of pay. It's just, women are making that choice to enter the job field. I, being a CEO, understand how to implement equal pay policies in the business field. I know how to run a business to where women are paid the same amount as men, and it is not impossible. It's actually relatively simple. Therefore, I don't understand why the gender wage gap is still relevant. I don't understand why it's still occurring if we can't implement equal pay policies. That's why I believe it's unreasonable. Once again, my name is Sarah Gilson, and I'm against the wage gap.
Thank you, Sarah. Amanda, according to Forbes, women make 79 cents on every dollar that a man makes. Do you believe that this difference in wages is reasonable?
I believe that this difference in wages is reasonable. According to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, the top 10 most dangerous jobs are dominated by men, and the jobs that require or have lower pay are actually dominated by women, such as human resources jobs and education jobs. So, like I've said before, the gender wage gap is too much of a generalization. It's generalizing that men are making more than women when in fact they're working completely different jobs, so you can't make that straight comparison. And also, like I mentioned before, that the hours are different, the kind of degrees are different, and yes, as my partner said, she's a CEO, but if you think about it, the reason why a lot of women aren't chosen to become a CEO is because being a CEO requires a lot of time commitment, and that is why some jobs ask women if they're planning on having kids or what their home lifestyle is, because they want to make sure that they hire someone who's dedicated to this job. I mean, a CEO needs to make sure that they're in charge of the company. They should know what's going on, and it's a matter of balancing home and life. And so that's why it's a choice. Women have that choice to decide what kind of career they want. No one's telling them which way to go, and if they don't want to focus on higher pay, then they don't have to. So as I've stated before, I believe that the gender wage gap is a choice and it's not discrimination.
Thank you, Amanda. Alex, according to Forbes, women make 79 cents on every dollar that a man makes. Do you believe that this difference in wages is fair?
One of my co-speakers has said that the gender gap is a choice because men choose to have harder working jobs than women generally do. I think that is untrue because even in the same job, like I am a teacher and my fellow co-teachers who are male still make more than I do, even though we have the same level of education and we work the same hours and we put put in just as much effort at each other. It shows, according to an article by the American Association of University Boards, it shows that pay is lower for women in any job force compared to a man, except for, I think, 9 different fields, as Sarah was saying. And it gets lower if that woman is uneducated, and lower again if she is a woman of color. So to me, that is a clear-cut case of discrimination. Now, the Equal Pay Act of 1963 is supposed to protect women from these discriminations, but it hasn't done it. It raised our wage gap a little more, but it hasn't made the leap that from the 79 cents to the full dollar that they made. And according to the same article, it tells us that it will take 100 years for women to reach the same amount of money that men make in the same fields, which is why I think that this is pure discrimination and that there's something needs to be done about it, and it's why I'm against the wage gap.
Thank you. Finally, Jacqueline, knowing that women make 79 cents on every dollar that a man makes, do you believe that this difference in wages is reasonable?
I do think it's reasonable. As one of my fellow co-panelists has said, women do make a choice from these lower paying jobs because they think that it's more important to spend time in their household duties and with their children, while men tend to take on higher paying jobs that require them to spend more time outside of the home instead of spending time with the children. The National Bureau of Economic Research actually found that women who are married tend to take on lower paying jobs than unmarried women who earn more, and in some cases they earn the same amount as men or more than them. And also, there are some women who choose to spend their entire time as homemakers, such as myself, so you have to take into account that there are women who work less time than others, and that there are some women who do not earn a wage at all. So for that reason, I believe that it is reasonable. Again, my name is Jacqueline Solis, and I am for the gender pay gap.
Okay, thank you very much, panelists. I'd like to thank Sarah, who is against the gender wage gap. Her main point was that she has to put in twice the amount of effort to get the same pay. Then I'd like to thank Amanda, who feels that the gender wage gap is reasonable because of job risk and the proportion of women to men in different job settings. Then I'd like to thank Alex, who is against the gender wage gap. Her main argument was that the only reason that there is such a difference between men and women's wages is due to discrimination. And Jacqueline, who believes that the gender wage gap is reasonable because women have less resources to spend on in a professional field due to their job at the home. So I'd like to thank our panelists and thank the audience for attending our panel to discuss and look at from 4 women's different points of views on the gender wage gap. And I'd like to ask if there are any questions for our 5-minute Q&A. Woman in the back in the dark shirt.
Okay, do you think that it is ethical that the wage gap is more prominent for married women?
So I will ask that question for Jacqueline. Do you think that the wage gap is more prevalent for... I'm sorry, can you repeat your question one more time?
Do you think that it is ethical that the wage gap is more prominent for married women?
Okay. Jacqueline, do you feel that the wage gap is more prevalent for married women?
I do feel that it's ethical that the wage gap is more prevalent for married women than it is for unmarried women. According to economist Frances D. Blue, she found that married women are less likely to invest time in jobs that require on-the-job training or specific job training in specific fields because they do not have enough time to invest in these different jobs. While unmarried women are more likely to choose higher paying jobs that require more time and more training and more time to learn their trade because they don't have as many responsibilities outside of their home and they don't have to care for children apart from this. For that reason, I do think that the gender pay gap between married and unmarried women is ethical.
another question from the audience. Yes, man in the brown polo.
A question from Ms. Alex. If the gender wage gap is discrimination, what should be done to right this wrong?
Alex, the question was, if the gender wage gap is discrimination, what should be done to right this wrong?
So right now, there is a bill that is trying to get passed. That is an extension of the Equal Pay Act. It's called the Fair Wages Act, and it's supposed to force more compliance with the Equal Pay Act from 1963. That states that there should be no discrimination for women or people of color, and the new Fair Pay Act is supposed to more thoroughly enforce these rights and take away the wage gap from 79 to the full dollar.
Okay, thank you panelists, and I'd like to thank the audience for attending this America Works conference, and I hope you guys have a great day.